Hi, this is Adrian from Live to Learn Academy, and today we're going to be going over lesson 7.1, Exploring Equivalent Trigonometric Functions. For those of you guys who are new to this channel, we post daily videos like this from Monday to Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're struggling with this course, feel free to subscribe, like the channel, as it really helps us grow. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So today, guys, we're going to be going over equivalent trigonometric functions. Now, these are actually called co-function identities. Okay, I'm going to explain what these co-function identities are. So co-function identities refer to the relationship between different angles in a right angle triangle. Okay, so we know in a right angle triangle we have obviously our 90-degree angle, we have a theta, and then we have this other angle. Now this other angle is going to be pi over 2 minus theta because these two angles must equal pi over 2 or 90 degrees, right? So one of the angles will be theta, the other angles will be pi over 2 minus theta. Now the reason we're thinking of it like this is because from this we're going to create three different co-function identities that happen in quadrant 1. Okay? And these are just formulas that I want you guys to know. So if we know sine theta, right? Sine theta is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So if we look at sine theta, so sine theta is going to be, we'll call this x, we'll call this y, and we'll call this r. So if we say sine theta, it's going to be opposite over hypotenuse, which is x over r. That's the same thing as saying cos of pi over 2 minus theta, because cos of pi over 2 minus theta is talking about this, which is adjacent over hypotenuse, which is also x over r. So notice how we're using the sine theta and the cos theta, but with these interior acute angles, we are getting the same thing. So we're finding equivalent expressions for this. So the equivalent expression for sine theta is just going to be cos theta pi over 2 minus theta. The equivalent expression for cos theta is going to be this. And the equivalent expression for tan theta is going to be this. So that's essentially what we're doing. We're just trying to find these equivalent expressions. Now the thing is, when we're doing this, the equivalent expression changes depending on the quadrant we are in. So remember, we have 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1, Quadrant 2, Quadrant 3, and Quadrant 4. These rules apply for Quadrant 1, but a different rule will apply for Quadrant 2, a different rule will apply for Quadrant 3, and a different rule will apply for Quadrant 4. And this is why I included this chart over here, guys, because depending on where the principal angle is, if you see, these equations start to change. There are little variations. So what I want you guys to do is always remember this chart and the variations you have so that we can go through different types of questions. So let's look at a type of question to kind of bring this to light. So let's say we have sine 7 pi over 8. Okay? The first thing I want to do is I want to find out what quadrant this is in. So one way I could do that is I could look at this 7 pi over 8, and I could say this is 7 times 180 divided by 8. And the reason I converted it to degrees is it helps me understand where this angle actually is. This gives me 157.5 degrees. So since I have 157.5 degrees, I know, based off this question, I'm going to be in quadrant 2, right? Because we know this is 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. If I know I'm going to be in quadrant 2, then obviously I got to use these formulas. So you see how it says sine 7 pi over 8? That's going to be the same thing as saying sine pi minus 7 pi over 8, because I'm using this first formula right here. So now we can kind of simplify it. So we figured out the quadrant, we figured out we're dealing with sine, and we're just using the formula. So if I want to use this formula, I would just get a common denominator, and then I'll have sine 8 pi minus 7 pi, which is pi over 8. And this right here is your answer. So let's look at what we did. These two guys, sine 7 pi over 8 and sine pi over 8, are equivalent trig expressions. So we're using the quadrant and we're using the formula to manipulate the question to get an equivalent trigonomic expression, otherwise known as a cofunction. Think about it, it's a cofunction. The word co comes from like co-parenting, or co means like together or equivalent, right? So cofunction, equivalent trigonomic expressions, same kind of deal. Okay, let's try another question. So let's try a question, what if it was like this? Cos 13 pi over 12, okay? Remember, the first thing what I do is I take this and I want to find out the degrees, because if I find out the degrees, I'll be able to know which quadrant it's in. So this gives me 195 degrees when I put it in my calculator. So 195 degrees, I know we're going to be in quadrant 3, because this will be 195 degrees, okay? So if we're in quadrant 3, we go back to our formula sheet. Over here, we're talking about cos. So it's saying cos pi plus theta is equal to negative cos theta. Okay. So this cos 13 pi over 12, I have to make that into something like this. So the way I would do that is pi plus what would give me 13 pi over 12. Pi plus pi over 12 is actually going to give me that 13 pi over 12. So you see that? This right here is going to give me the 13 pi over 12. And that should equal negative cos theta. So the real question is, how did we find the pi over 12? Well, that was just mental math, because we need that pi over 12 for putting it over here. And this right here would be our answer. Okay? So in this case, right, some people might look at this and they'll say, okay, how did you know to do the mental math like that? Well, all you can do is on the side, you can do some math on the side, and you can say 13 pi over 12 is equal to pi plus theta. So how do I find theta? I'll do 13 pi over 12 minus pi to get theta. And then what I'll do is I'll get a common denominator. And then I'll have pi over 12 is equal to theta. Done. So this is just the side math that I was doing, guys, for you guys to understand exactly how I got that. So this is the thing with cofunction identities. You're really just taking these formulas and manipulating them so that you can get the equivalent trigonomic expression, right? So we did that. Cool. Okay, let's try another one. We'll say example 3, let's do sine 13 pi, or actually let's do a tan. Let's do a tan function. Let's do a tan function because we did sine and cos already. Tan 5 pi over 3. So 5 pi over 3 we know is 5 times 180 over 3, which gives us 300 degrees. So 300 degrees, guys, we know 300 degrees is going to be in our fourth quadrant. So this is quadrant 4. So now we got to find the tan ratio for quadrant 4. So it says tan 2 pi minus theta is equal to negative tan theta. So tan 2 pi minus theta is equal to negative tan theta. So now we need to know, okay, 2 pi minus theta has to be equal to my 5 pi over 3. So let's solve for theta. So I'll get 2 pi minus 5 pi over 3 is equal to theta. And then from here, I multiply by 3, and we end up with 6 pi over 3 minus 5 pi over 3 is equal to theta, and then that gives me pi over 3 is equal to theta. Now, if pi over 3 is equal to theta, then I can now take from over here, I can say tan theta, nope, not tan theta, tan of 2 pi minus pi over 3, right? Which is technically my 5 pi over 3 right here, is equal to negative tan pi over 3. And this right here, my friends, is my equivalent trigonomic expression. Okay, so hopefully you guys found this video very helpful for clearing up this concept. The main thing, guys, I want you to know is you have to identify what quadrant it's in and then apply these formulas to be able to find the equivalent trigonomic expression. Now, if you're somebody who needs tutoring and you still are confused about this, feel free to click the link in our description. You can get in touch with our team, and our team would love to help you get some tutoring set up. But without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next video.